I go. Good afternoon, all. Good afternoon, all. Welcome to Cleveland Avenue Elementary School's Go Team meeting. We will follow the agenda as it has been emailed to you and publicly noted. I am pleased to call this meeting to order. The Go Team meeting at 4:18. Madam Secretary Emmanuel, would you like to take roll to ensure we have a quorum?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Rawls,
Present.
Miss Brilliance Darden,
Present.
Miss April Eccles, Miss Laquita Roberts, Miss Brittany White, is that you, Miss White? Yep. No? No? Miss Brittany White? Dr. Rory Real? Mr. William Curry?
Present.
Miss Donna Jenkins?
Present.
And Miss Quenisha Hicks?
Present.
So is there a quorum present? I believe so. I need to
Yes.
issue. Okay.
There are 5.
So we do have a quorum present, and we will move along the agenda as presented. The first action item is our first order of business is to approve the agenda. This was provided to you and copies are here for anyone who is here. Please take a moment to review the agenda, and if there are any changes to the agenda, please let us know. We have a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
I, Donna Jenkins, make a motion that we approve the agenda as written.
Okay. We have a second.
Second.
Okay. And who was that?
Ms. Hicks.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda as printed. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Okay, is there any opposition? Please signal by saying nay. And would anyone like to abstain from voting on the agenda item or the agenda? Okay, so it has been approved that we move forward with the agenda as printed. All right, now we will approve now we have a review and approval of the minutes from our last meeting. The minutes have been provided to you. If you could take them, you should have had a chance to review them. Please take a moment if you have not, and then let us know if there are any revisions to our last meeting's minutes. The minutes were previously emailed and have been provided. But if there are no corrections, I would like to call for a motion to approve the minutes.
I, Donna Jenkins, make a motion to approve the minutes, previous minute.
All right, thank you, Ms. Jenkins. There's been a motion that we approve the minutes from our last meeting as printed. Do we have a second for that motion?
Second.
That was very started. Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes from our last meeting. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Is there any opposition? You can state that by saying nay. And then finally, would anyone like to abstain from voting on the minutes? Well, there you have it. It has been approved. It has been approved that the minutes from our last meeting have been approved. And now we will move to the discussion items on our menu. Our next agenda item is the budget feedback presentation. Principal Rawls will walk us through his proposed school's draft budget, which was shared with everyone before the meeting. And then after the presentation, we'll have discussion on how the budget aligns with our school's strategic priorities. As we review the budget, it's important to focus on how any adjustments from the district's recommended funding support our school's goals. This is an opportunity for us as a goal team to provide feedback and ensure that our school is making the most of its available resources. Dr. Roll.
I want to say before we begin going over the budget presentation, just a couple of things. Number one, historically, this year in APS, schools are facing huge deficits. Anywhere ranging from 720,000, which is our school designation deficit area, all the way up to $2.1 million. So all principals are having to collaborate and work through budget decisions. There are tough decisions that have to be made. This is not a singleton thing that's happening just at Cleveland. It is happening throughout the district. The other thing that I would like to preface and say that this is a process. What you guys will be seeing today is a draft. The entire budget process is not done. There are additional steps and things that will have to take place. And of course, you guys know in our process, the GO team will vote on the completion of the budget on March 14th. I want to say also that we won't be discussing any names. We'll be discussing positions only. And things that are positions that may be on here does not mean that people will not still be in the building or other things could not happen. I want to preface all that before we get started, just as we get ready to go into this presentation. It is one of the hardest things that any principal would have to do when making decisions as what's best for students as you collaborate with other teams on this process. So just want to be transparent. Tough times. All right, we kind of went through the approval of the minutes. We're going into our action item for today, which would be the GO team will vote on the draft budget. We can go to the next slide. All right, our meeting norms. Only members of the team may participate in the discussion. Any members of the public present are here to quietly observe, minus having our time that we will have public comment. We invite and welcome contributions of every member and listen to each other. We will follow the agenda as noted to the public and stay on task. We will respect all ideas and assume good intentions. Meeting norms. All right. We're in step 4. As you see, we did the data review. Step 1, strategic plan review we talked about, and we actually ranked our strategic priorities. In the last meeting, I shared the full budget allocations with you guys. We're moving now to step 4, budget choices. As you see, this meeting, we actually changed the date of this meeting. We had to change it because we need to have this meeting before the 14th. So we're here doing our feedback meeting today. We'll go back to that slide, please. As you see in the process here, this is our meeting, step 5. Step 6, I will have a cluster superintendent review for my staffing conference. I'm leading up to the staffing conference that happens on the 24th through the 27th. I think mine's on the 26th. And we come back, vote on the final budget on March 14th. So as you can see, there are still steps and things and timelines that will happen before we close out the budget season. During the GO team feedback meeting, the principal will share the 25-26 strategic plan breakout, providing an overview of school's draft budget, share updated tabs from the Excel template, and review or collaborate with the GO team on the comments and notes to explain the use of school level flexibility and budget allocations. The why. This meeting provides an opportunity for GO team to discuss the principal's proposed budget and how it supports the school programmatic needs and key strategic priorities for the 25-26 school year. It also provides the GO team with the opportunity to review and provide feedback on proposed use of school level flexibility. We'll talk about some things that have changed this year in terms of flexibility. When? Early February 10th through February 14th, before my cluster superintendent review. These are our strategic priorities and our school strategies. This is where we went in and we did this in October, where we ranked our priorities and we talked about kind of what our focus areas would be. We have this. This is how we actually ranked our priorities and the rationale, and I can go through these again if I need to. But we talked about in our last meeting, how we created rationales to go with each one of the priorities. And later in the presentation, you'll see how I aligned the priorities with the budget decisions. Once again, it's more of the actual priorities and rationale that's ranked. That's aligned to each one of the priorities. Review of the 26 signature and turnaround program funds process. We talked about this, but I'll review it with you. The district is piloting a zero-based budgeting process for signature and turnaround program funds this year. The zero-based budgeting is a budgeting process that allocates funding based on program efficiency and necessity rather than budget history, as opposed to traditionally budgeting no item is automatically included in the next budget. Meaning, they took all the money away and really had to do more of a sit down and say, okay, specifically in a perfect world, what would you need in order to be able to run your department? Here at Cleveland, we do have a signature program, but we're not a part of a turnaround program, so we wouldn't receive any funds for turnaround. As such, the initial allocation for these programs at all schools are zero. I kind of talked a little bit about this last time, what I was projecting to do with our signature programs. I'll show you a bit more later. All right, go back to the process. Principals will develop a proposed request for the personnel and non-personnel they need to support the signature and turnaround programs. I sent it up and I'll tell you about the next steps. Principals will share and discuss their proposals and rationales for proposals with their school GO team for feedback. After discussing with their GO team, principals will submit their requests for review by, January 31st, I think. I'm not for sure. Scott.
Yes, January 31st.
For these programs that will be provided the week of February 3rd. So I'll share what I actually put in the process. All right, so I requested a STEM lab teacher, and I requested funds for signature program supplies and resources. We talked about this last time we were here, to shift, and the whole purpose around making that shift and rationale is a STEM lab teacher will be able to help support us with all of our PBL and STEM initiatives. That way, providing those hands-on experiences, we'll be able to touch all scholars and students around STEM. That also will help teachers as we're preparing for PBL. That work will live in the wheelhouse of the STEM lab teacher, and teachers then will be something that necessarily wouldn't have to have the heavy lift. The other funding I asked for was signature programs for supplies and resources. So having the money to be able to get all the supplies for PBL, if I need to send someone to a conference to support with STEM, those are the major two areas I asked for. I asked for $139,556. That included the STEM lab teacher's salary and about $10,000 to $12,000 that we were going to use for program supplies and resources. I got the actual approval, and they did approve both for the STEM lab teacher and approve for me to get the signature funds. So I got the $139,556 for STEM program here at Cleveland. And please stop, like I said, they have questions. We see some questions in the chat or anything. All right, Cleveland Avenue Elementary's 26 summary of proposed staffing and non-staffing. It's just proposed based on the budget that we have. I'll go through each one of the sheets now. We can go to the first one. As we see here, we are proposing to have 2 kindergarten teachers, 2 first, 2 second, 2 third, 2 fourth, 2 fifth. We will still have the same specials that we had proposed. We will have art, music, band and a half Spanish and half art. So full-time PE, full-time music, half Spanish, half art. And each grade level will have 2 teachers.
Someone asked, can we blow it up? It's small.
Yeah, and what else can we?
It's within the,
Oh, slides.
it's a slide.
Oh, no, zoom in.
Yeah, I know. And a slide from there, what do you?
I don't know how to zoom in. I don't know how you would zoom. But what feature are you using for the slide presentation?
When you put
Is it
PowerPoint,
PowerPoint
this is a
No,
Google
Google
slide.
Slides.
or Google slide? Okay, that's what I was asking, is it
Yeah.
PowerPoint or what? You see what I'm saying? I'm not sure how you. Okay.
If you don't put it in a slide.
Yeah, just like that. See?
Okay,
That's,
there you go.
You wanna go over it one
Oh,
more
yeah, I
time?
can. Okay, so we will have 2 kindergarten teachers, 2 first grade teachers, 2 second grade teachers, 2 third grade teachers, 2 fourth grade teachers, 2 fifth grade teachers. We will have a full-time PE teacher, a full-time music teacher. We will have a part-time art teacher and part-time Spanish teacher. So all our specials will stay the same. All right, moving on for next year. Oh, can you move this?
Mhm.
As far as next year, as we have planned, we will have 2 EIP teachers. One supporting math, one supporting reading, 2 EIP teachers. In terms of our ESOL enrollment, we have a 0.8 for ESOL. Interrelated will be 5 teachers. And what we have right now is a 0.5 that the district pays for and a 0.5 I pick up to give us a full-time special education lead teacher. Because we earn a 0.5 and I pick up the other 0.5. As you see, we have 2 regional autism units teachers and all of this. So let me go ahead and say in preface, anything in terms of special education is not allotted through me. The district allots those positions. The only thing that I had to pick up as a school was the 0.5 to support our self position. But other than that, everything else is provided. The number of teachers, whether it be interrelated, paraprofessionals, all of that is driven through the DEE department, Department of Exceptional Educator or Education. See that's there. Paraprofessional, special ed paraprofessional, we have 5, but all that comes out of the budget. We have, which I'll talk about, it's a new addition, an ISS monitor that will be added. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the new created positions, but an ISS monitor, principal and assistant principal. All right. Here, we're talking about, we have 1 school secretary. We're gonna have a part-time bookkeeper, 0.5, and I'll talk about that to be an hourly. We'll talk about that as well. And a 211 school clerk. As you see in the next line, we have a counselor, a full-time counselor here for next year. And we'll talk about this a little bit more, but as you see here, we will have 2 instructional coaches next year. 2 instructional coaches next year. We have a media specialist, school nurse for next. All right, next slide. We will have a full-time social worker. It's calculated in our budget for next year as well. All right. Next slide. These are created positions, and these are the positions that were removed. We're going to remove the 2 kindergarten paraprofessionals. To support, and that was a question asked around supporting the kindergarten paraprofessionals. Our kindergarten enrollment is 14 and 11 currently. To be able to support those, the decision was made to have 2 full-time teachers versus having 1 teacher and a paraprofessional to support our kindergarten grade level. If you're having 1 teacher and 1 paraprofessional, not knowing what happens with the enrollment, we may not have enough students to get a second kindergarten teacher. So we're going to keep 2 full-time kindergarten teachers. To support the removal of the SST specialist position, looking at to support that process, we're shifting that to be supported by grade level chairs and teachers through the small group and through that intervention time that we're going to look at next year. The 3rd grade teacher position is just based on where we are in enrollment. We would be able to still support. So this is a position, not a person, but we're just shifting it with the allotment to be able to still have 2 3rd grade teachers, because originally it had 3 on our first allocation. The kindergarten EIP teacher was given there, but it was it was on top of already having a kindergarten teacher. So we converted it from the kindergarten EIP to a general kindergarten position. Typically we've had that general paraprofessional to support because based on enrollment, but with the number of students coming up with the enrollment, we just don't have enough funding to be able to support that position. Instead, we're going to work on, I have another option that may be able to support with high classes. Instructional coach, with having the other shift that happened is that we actually have started the year with having a Readers as Leaders instructional coach, which is a part of a new initiative here in APS. That initiative somewhat has gone away, and all instructional coaches were kind of given the title as instructional coaches. Based on the size of our school and based on the size of our school, to be able to support, went down to only having 2 instructional coaches for next year. In addition to that, our hourly cafe monitor, the funding for that shifted to be able to push in other areas, and we're going to work out a schedule so we can get others to support in that cafe, in the cafe for lunch. The creation of new positions. Want to bring on an ISS monitor to provide support for isolation for students. There's 2 parts. One, it was a part of making sure we're in compliance when we're having to put referrals in and giving isolation time. Part 2 of that provides a space for students to have some restorative practices, whether they're pushing the actual counselor in or working with the ISS monitor on how to use some of those strategies while in that environment, ISS to support students coming back to the classroom. An hourly bookkeeper will be used to support with the financial pieces in the front office and POs and requisitions, as that we went away from having our school business manager and trying to find someone who can help with keeping all the requisition and POs. The good thing about having the hourly person is it is a little bit more affordable, and that person will come in every day only focused in on those financial obligations. Last but not least, we're going to create 2 hourly paraprofessional positions. Those positions will be used to support throughout the building wherever needed. Could be in a reading small group class in kindergarten, could be a reading small group class in 3rd, could be wherever in the building. These people will also maybe support in the cafe to help with the hourly cafe monitoring so we can continue on that process. Literally 2 more people in the building to support wherever we would need would be instruction throughout the building. That is the proposed plan for next year. Over to the next slide. Non-staffing tab, we looked here, you see we got a $65,000 reserve. That is saying if we get all of our students for next year, we get the $65,000 back into our budget to allocate to support the school. Contracted services, we went to $14,915. That's going to be used if we would have to go back and continue to work with K-12 assessment solutions or any other professional development to support. Put $612 in for postage. We have to get stamps to send anything off as well. $10,000 for web-based subscriptions and licenses, any of those programs that we need, study out, and any of that, want to renew all of those. We put the $8,438 for field trips. If we have, field trips are going anywhere, that's a total for us to support there. I put $29,000 in for teacher supplies. Any supplies that teachers would need, we order paper and dry eraser markers, any of those things to support. I wanted to try to increase the books that we have in the media center. So put about $11,000 in for books to get new books added to our media center. All right, see the next slide. Dues and fees, so you see the $6,300 for signature program, that's put in for us to get whatever we need to support our signature program, which is STEM. In addition to that, we got $45,000 to use for our security grant. We actually have it for this year and we'll have it for next year allocated for us to do some work around. I've already put a portion of that in to support with cameras, but we got to continue to look at upgrading our camera system. It's just a lot that goes on in our parking lots. We actually had one of our teachers in another campus, unfortunately, a car was stolen. So we just got to make sure that we're looking at cameras and keeping everyone safe. Academic stipends, those are put in by the district, which cannot be touched. It's saying that we will have money for grade level chairs to be able to support, and that's one for grade level. And next year, we have our subs. We have $50,000 for subs. The district shared with us next year, unfortunately, we will not be having in-person permanent subs, so all that will be happening will have to be taken and paid through local school. And I've noticed this year there's been an uptick in teacher subs, so that $50,000 hopefully will hold us over. And $732 paid for a substitute benefits.
I had a question about the security grant.
Mhm.
I remember we had talked about earlier getting those shades on the windows. Can some of that money be used for the shades on the windows, like a covering for the windows?
That's gonna be on this year though. So
That's on
this
this-
is for, you get
Oh.
45 for this year that I'm doing cameras with and some of the window.
Oh,
This is another 45 for next year for us to talk about what we want to do to upgrade. I think we get it for 3 or 4 years. But great question. Hourly bookkeepers at $15,000 that we would have to support that, and the $39,000 represents those 2 hourly paraprofessionals. All right. Priorities, funding 25, FY25 funding priorities from the school strategic plan ranked by the order of importance. Strategies, lay out specific objectives for the school improvement, request to ask what needs to be funded in order to support the strategy, the amount, what is the cost associated with the request. So we're setting you up because on the next slides, I've kind of done this process to talk about the priority that it's aligned to, what's the strategy that we're doing, what am I asking, and then what's the cost associated. So this is going to show you on the next slide what we actually did with those decisions. You got something?
Miss Jenkins.
Yes.
Oh, never mind.
All right, I'm sorry, I went on mute.
Yeah, okay. Is that the end of it?
No, we should
Oh.
keep going. No?
No, the end of the budget? I didn't see anything about gifted. Is there something about gifted?
Yeah, it should be still in there.
Okay,
I'm sorry, I didn't say it. Yeah, gifted is still in there.
okay.
You wanna go to the next?
Mhm.
All right. So implement standards-based instruction while creating rigorous student learning experiences that are aligned. I'm asking to implement an assessment system that's used to measure student progress throughout the semester and year and used to make instructional decisions. The request is due to 3-5 ELA benchmark assessments. The amount is $10,000. Going back to the request and why am I asking? You may say we already have these benchmarks. Well, ELA is getting new standards next year. Being very open to just doing the bare minimum. So we may be looking at doing just a mid-year assessment and maybe one at the end of the third 9 weeks because we are getting new standards. Plus, we are hopefully adopting a new curricular resource. So we want to kind of see what is maybe used in their unit assessments and their assessments. But I do like having something in-house that we can use to gauge where we are. So I only put $10,000 there. Talked about partnering with wraparound, I'm sorry. Talking about SCL and why we made the move, looking at the ISS monitor. Partner with wraparound services to provide mental health and SCL support for students. So we're gonna use to support the social and emotional needs of our scholars by providing a space for the counselor and the ISS monitor to give students restorative circles and give strategies to support their SCL needs. So that's kind of the goal for the ISS monitor. That amount would be $56,115. Priorities, the last priority is in building the capacity of math and reading teachers. The strategy would be to provide push and support to help students during reading and math small group segments. I put 2 hourly paraprofessionals, and that will be $39,000. So that will be based on looking at the data, we could change and decide where this person would support. All right. This is the function sheet that just shows all around how much that we're spending. And it shows you where we land in the different categories. With instruction per pupil. This shows you the breakdown of where the money's being spent. You see majority of it is being spent in instruction, 75% of it. All right. Does this budget proposal as a whole effectively support our school's strategic? This was for us to talk about as a GO team. Or for you guys to discuss as a GO team, we need to be here to support. Does this budget proposal as a whole effectively support our school's strategic priority? How do the principal's proposed changes directly support priorities in our strategic plan? Can we clearly connect each adjustment to a strategic goal? If new positions, resources, or programs are being added, what data or feedback supports these changes? And how will we measure their impact? What trade-offs are involved? Are any current programs or resources being adjusted or reduced? And how would that affect our students and staff? You guys want to take some time to look at those questions?
Thank you, Principal Ross, for that overview. Let's start a discussion by examining the proposed budget and how it supports our strategic priorities. We want to ensure that it aligns with our school's plans while making the best use of our flexibility. Keeping our focus on strategic priorities will help ensure any adjustments are intentional and support our goals. And to guide that, we'll use these questions that are presented now. So would you guys like to do, I don't know, like maybe go question by question? And literally, so do we have our strategic plan?
There was a slide.
There was a slide in there?
Wasn't there a slide with the strategic plan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go back. Go all the way back.
I still have the questions right here too, so I can ask the questions while the strategic plan is up.
You want to go to where you ranked them, or you want to go to all of the plans? It doesn't matter, both are
Let's see
there.
what we have. So we go to the ranking, yeah, we'll go to the ranking, and then you have to go to it. So this is how we rank. And so does this budget proposal as a whole effectively support our school's strategic priorities? So if I could, it doesn't seem like the budget does any of this, but it doesn't not do this. It's unfortunately we're in a position to where we had to make some adjustments, and we're basically just not bare bones, but bare bones services and positions. And so this is how do we build and move forward, but unfortunately our budget is how do we basically sustain. Right? I guess you're I see you trying to be quiet.
No, I mean, I'm here, if that's the question, is it?
So no, and we're asking for your,
Yeah.
so we're asking. I mean, I just want to make sure that that's what
You
I
have
saw,
it right.
and I just want to make
So
sure that I
we-
saw what I saw.
When we walked into this process, we walked in being in $720,000 in the red. We already knew that we couldn't function. $720,000 of rent meant that everything would be the same, and we would function the same way next year.
Mhm.
We knew that was not going to be an option. So we had to look at what we were going to do to still run school as close as we could to keep things going. As I began to have discussions and think through it, my goal was to keep the teachers as close as we could, keep teachers there and not try to increase class size to support. That was the premise behind it, but to answer your question, it was to look at trimming the fat and kind of getting to a point where we can function.
I got you. And the reason I asked that, and I appreciate that, that's what I was assuming. But I asked that because all four of these questions are really about the strategic plan and about how in line with the, how in line are the adjustments with the school's overall plan. And again, but it's asking, so the next question is, so this first question was, how does this budget proposal as a whole effectively support our school's strategic priorities? These are our priorities. And so the budget, you got it, you want to say something, right? So it doesn't really, we're not, while we're not building capacity for K-5 math teachers, and we're not building capacity for K-5 reading teachers, we're not doing these things, we're not taking anything away from them. And you were trying to keep the staffing as close to original as possible. We're trimming the fat, if you will.
I think a concern would be like keeping the staffing, but then it's a heavy workload for the teachers now. And I don't know if, I know we're all, Ms. Darden wanted to also, I got you, Ms. Darden, I'm gonna mute in just a minute, but we are all capable educators, we are, but I don't know if it's realistic to say the teachers will be, responsible for planning the RTI things, because I saw on there the SST position is being eliminated, but that's a big chunk of our school. We have so many students on tiers, and so now you're saying the grade level chairs are going to be responsible for what exactly as
So
concerning
that,
with
as
the tiers.
speaking from, we haven't broken down all
Okay,
components of it. It's just figuring out, and it would be a collaboration of the assistant principal working with others to the side, but it's not fleshed out 100% on what that looks like. But will it involve some work and collaboration with grade level teachers and teachers on grade level to support? Yes, but it wouldn't. All of that solely would not just be on that group of people.
okay. And Ms. Darden? I saw she had her hand raised.
Yeah. I had two separate questions, but just to kind of piggyback off that, I know that you guys are wanting to that is proposed to cut some of the paraprofessionals. With the SSI teacher being removed and teachers having to now kind of carry that load and then not having as much support in the classroom, I guess I'm kind of concerned, like, how does that align with prioritizing instruction if the teachers are going to have so many other things to do now?
And I want to make sure I'm understanding the question for clarity. You're saying with the SST position, as well as with the paraprofessionals, how are the things going to get done? Is that your question?
Well, like, because it says, it's to build teacher capacity, math teachers to deconstruct standards, select effective instructional strategies to pour more into the students is the ultimate goal for the teachers. I know now there's only 2 teachers per grade level. And now with more, not of a workload being put on them, but also then them maybe not having as much support with the cutting of the paraprofessionals, I'm just wondering, like, how would that then align with the ultimate goal of the students getting more support?
I got you. So you're saying, how does that align with the students getting more support with the paraprofessionals being removed?
Yeah.
It will create a new level of support because they won't have them. But in looking at the strategic priorities and trying to prioritize where we were keeping the money, my thought was to continue to keep teachers so class sizes would be smaller. Because the only other option would be if you did keep one paraprofessional, then you would have to remove another teacher. Because I want you to understand, Ms. Darden and Go Team, this is not an easy decision to make. In terms of trying to get the budget balanced. It was not specifically around any position, any group. It was trying to figure out what was be those bare bones for us to be able to still function as a school. Because we were $720,000 in the negative.
Mm.
Okay.
I just think it's a big concern for our school in particular because of just the number of students we have on RTI. I just think that's an important piece.
Okay.
But I think with everything else, like I think the inclusion of an ISS, like teacher or something, I think that is spot on with partnering with help and wraparound support, because I think that's really needed, like a separate space for students to calm down and regroup for their social and emotional support. What was the other question?
The other question is, how do
Or
the
did we
principals?
answer, that?
I can read it just so we could know that it's what's on here. It says, how does the principal's proposed changes directly support priorities in our strategic plan, which again is what we answered, and can we clearly connect each adjustment to a strategic goal? And so I think he just covered that, but it's the last two, and I think it's more of a, these are general, so I appreciate you, Ms. Emmanuel, for asking your question, and Ms. Darden, of more specific nature. C and D are, if new positions, resources, or programs are being added, what data or feedback supports these changes, and how we measure their impact. And so I think that's what you asked about the ISS.
Yes, and so we can measure the impact of that maybe by the referrals, the number of referrals, if it's decreasing or increasing. The position of the STEM teacher can help with implementing PBL units, but I need a little help understanding that. So if the district is doing away with signature programming, we're still focusing on PBL. That's just doing away with the.
So when you use the term doing away with,
Oh.
is
They're not doing it, they're not funding signature
so
programming.
they are funding it differently.
Gotcha.
Originally, it was that everyone had it and you were getting this X number of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're saying, what do you need in order to be able to function in the
Yes.
capacity? So
Thank
I hope I communicate. So I don't think they're getting rid of it per se.
It's just not.
It's just the funding of it is more on a as need
Okay.
basis. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of the talk around it was measuring its impact. Going back to the other question of what does that look like for STEM and PBL? So I want to clarify. I hope I didn't, not getting rid of, just reallocating funds to support.
Okay.
So on that, I'm sorry, on that same token, how readily available would the funding be if we see that there's a need later down the road for, something to help out with the special programming? How readily available would those funds be? Or would it be a process that we would have to go through in order to get those funds if needed at a later time?
Great question, Ms. Hicks. I'm going to say only from my past budget experiences. We go through this initial budget process and they allocate funds to us based on, in this particular area, the zero funding procedure. Historically, I have not seen it where there have been like, you can go back and ask for additional funds around a particular program during that FY year. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but typically we do this process. And as we do this process by March 14th or whenever it is each year, we close the budget out and they say, those are the funds that you do have. Sometimes we may get the reserve fund and some of that, but typically I have not seen it in my tenure here where there is an additional request for sums of money that you would get around it. Those priorities.
So that means that we would have to, in creating the budget for that or the line items for that, we would have to include everything and kind of sort of not leave, for lack of a better term, we can't leave any gray areas in the event that this funding is needed later down the road.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And once again, to Ms. Emmanuel's point, with the shift in how we're funding these signature programs, here at Cleveland wanted to continue that work. Hence why I wanted to have a STEM lab teacher to work with students on STEM projects so they can support still doing the STEM PBL work.
So there's a second set of questions that I can review as well. It says district and cluster priorities. And so, again, this is just to guide the discussion. How do these proposed changes align with district and cluster priorities? And do we foresee any challenges or misalignments, which I think speaks to Ms. Darden's question. And then if the district has allocated funds for specific initiatives, for example, signature programs, how are those reflected in our budget? And then if we are sharing staff positions, for example, nurse, counselor, teacher, how will this affect student support and services delivered at our school?
So we did not make any changes to share position. Since I've been here, I've always shared a 0.5 or a half art and a half Spanish. And we will continue to share that. So there's no new changes to shared positions here at Cleveland in this proposed budget.
Okay. And then it says, as a goal team, we have the opportunity to provide input on this budget before it moves forward. If we believe adjustments are needed to better align with our strategic plan, we can propose and discuss them now. Once we conclude our discussion, we will take vote on the draft of the budget.
Can you say that one more time?
As a goal team, we have the opportunity to provide input on this budget before it moves forward. If we believe adjustments are needed to better align with our strategic plan, we can propose and discuss them now. And once we conclude our discussion, we will take a vote on the draft budget.
So I do have one.
Okay.
That one that I had would be going back to the IST, and revisiting that. Because again, if that's where most of your population is, that's a necessity. And it's a job, it's not a job that if you're already classroom teaching, you can kind of manage. So I think we need to go back and revisit that area and see how we can kind of sort of make that work.
Maybe you want to go to the budget.
Definitely understand the feedback. My wondering that I would like to pose to the Go team is with that, either way. So if we do that, then we still have to find a way to budget to still balance the budget. Does that make sense? That would mean it's almost be a trade-off. If we go back and saying we're gonna add that position back, there still has to be another one that gets us back to a balanced budget. Does that make sense?
Yes, I got you.
You see what I'm saying? I'm not saying no to it, I'm saying, but as we're thinking through
You're
it,
saying,
this is something.
you're asking, are there any suggestions on what we can cut if we want to keep that in?
Yes, that's what
I
we're,
got
we're, to balance it out, and that's provide clarity. To balance it out, I understand what we're saying, that may not be what we feel like the position is, however, there still has to be something, if you bring that back as a trade-off, to still get us back to,
Balanced budget.
our balanced budget.
Yes, sir.
With also taking consideration the balance to support our students, I'm sorry.
Is it possible for that person to come in at least part-time?
There was a suggestion that I can kind of see, like, I'm still trying to think where we can balance, but there was a suggestion of maybe downsizing EIP to just one, and maybe, like she said, maybe half have a MTSS position, because I'm thinking about, as like being a teacher in the school, where is EIP like servicing? Is it the whole school, or is it just servicing certain grade levels?
It's certain
Where
grade levels. We can
MTSS is,
pull-
MTSS, that position is servicing the entire school.
So to answer the first question, EIP is based upon the actual students and how many students we have to serve for EIP. So we based on those segments. What was the second part of your question?
Well, I'm wondering if we can eliminate one of the EIP and do MTSS, like maybe have one of those be MTSS and then just have one EIP position. Because
Okay.
having two, we have a reading and a math now, but it's not K through 5 EIP reading.
Yeah.
It's not K through 5 EIP math, but with MTSS it's K through 5. And so if we're eliminating that position, where are we gonna service those students that
The
are
only
left
thing about
over?
EIP is a portion of that is earned through students. So if students through the rubric and get to a certain population, we still have to make sure, and I'm not saying no, we have to make sure that we could service the students that qualify for EIP. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So we would have to determine what that is and make sure we would have enough. And typically you would have one person doing something for reading and one person doing something for math, but that's totally fine with that work. So you're
Well-
saying eliminate, the only other thing about it, it still would be off a little bit because I think, I don't know if it's dollar for dollar per teacher
Mm-hmm.
and the value of the SST. I'll have to go back and look at what that dollar for dollar is.
Okay.
So that's-
Dr. Ross, quick question. Do you
Yes.
know the population size in that area, just roughly off the top of your head of your building?
Population as far as the total building, or are you saying the EIP area?
The EIP side of it.
It would, so right now we're servicing anywhere from about 10 students, 10 to 12 students per grade level. I know not all grade levels. I know we're pulling anywhere I would say servicing 30 to 35 students in math and about 20 to 30 students in reading for EIP.
Okay, with that same thing, where would this put Cleveland Ave as it pertains to GMATs?
In terms of the number of students, which part? Number of students that
In-
are getting EIP?
In terms of if we now take away this EIP, where would that leave the student or Cleveland Ave as a whole? Where would that leave them as far as GMAS is concerned?
I guess that's
Without
why
those kids getting those supports.
I'm on this. All right, so I'm
So
trying
you're-
to understand the GMAS part.
You're
I'm with
saying
you.
if we eliminate an EIP position, how can we justify eliminating EIP if it affects GMAS?
Correct.
Oh, but EIP, some portions and segments will be determined on those students as well, because if we deem based on those rubrics that the most of the students have the gaps in kindergarten through third, it wouldn't necessarily be a direct, or kindergarten through second, wouldn't necessarily be a direct reflection of GMAS, like student for student. So I don't know if it would truly correlate. But we really try to let the data drive the areas that we're supporting. Like, for example, in math, 4th and 5th grade have been the areas where students have qualified for EIP. So I don't know if that if the answer to that could be totally answered in the direct correlation with GMAS, because it may be students in lower grades that qualify for EIP that won't take the GMAS assessment. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Great question, though.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to think about, but then also I think it can work by merging, because I know you said you go by the rubrics, but some students are not being pulled by EIP, even if on the rubric they qualify for EIP. Like currently right now, we have students who are not being pulled for EIP, but also it correlates with SST, because most of our students who are on the tiers qualify for EIP. So if you are servicing them through an SST or MTSS specialist, but also EIP, I think they are still receiving that help.
Yeah, I hear you. I just
Yeah.
have to seek guidance on
Yeah,
exactly.
or where,
Yeah,
like
where-
maybe, I mean, we've survived without ISS right now, so maybe
Okay,
not.
and I'm fine. If we
Maybe
say
take out the ISS position,
that gives you 50, you still gotta put, which, fine, you wanna remove ISS?
I mean, it's a good, I think it's a good, oh, somebody said no.
I think we should remove ISS. I have some questions about that.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Go right
Okay.
ahead.
Okay, we wanted to remove the SST teacher. Like, I know that that's for students that need extra support with behavior. If we're totally getting rid of that and having ISS, in our community, in our neighborhood, like what like what's the game plan with that? Like, what's your objective with ISS and no SST teacher?
So
That's a good way to think about it.
as of now, this is something that I got guidance from the district on. We are, in terms of supporting students, when we get a student that has a behavior issue, there are only two things that can happen. I can either put them in isolation or I can suspend them. Put them in isolation usually means that that student is usually going with an administrator, with another instructional person, or going with another teacher. And also for coding purposes, which I will still have to work through, put them in isolation and not put them in ISS was shared with me that I'm out of compliance with following isolation, because technically the student is not in isolation, the student is with another teacher. So the premise behind it was, it will be twofold. One, we will be in compliance based on what we're putting in the system because we're coding it as isolation. Two, it would also refrain from teachers having additional students that they're watching and or staff members having to have students with them. A lot of times graciously, we have other staff members say, hey, you can just let him sit with me. They're trying to do meetings. We're trying to do all these things. And we have these students that are with us. And sometimes the perception of is these students don't get consequences because they were with another person, but not really in full isolation. So I'm not saying no to it, but just giving you my premise. If you guys decide or we decide as a Go team, we don't want it, that's fine. But I was trying to provide an opportunity for teachers to have what they need to be able to perform in classroom, other support people being able to do what they need to do as well. But that was my premise.
He needs to get into his
So
class.
with that same
One
question
moment,
on that-
please. I'm sorry. We have one situation.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, everyone. We had a situation with a student.
Yes.
You can go ahead with your question.
I guess my question would be for that. How I know there's a threshold, especially with our special education babies. There's a threshold of where, some of them can only be suspended 10 days of the year or whatnot. How close are we to, or how close is Cleveland Ave to reaching that threshold as it relates to needing an IST right away?
So you said as needing one, what was the last part? I'm sorry, Ms. Hicks, to make sure I clarify.
I think ISS.
As needing an ISS teacher right away, what would be the threshold? Like, I know a school can only put so many ISS or, out of school suspensions in the system at a time or whatever the case may be. So are we close to that threshold to where this is absolutely necessary right now? Or do we have some type of leeway as it pertains to having an ISS person?
No, we definitely have leeway. This was just a strategy that to be honest, what I have to unpack, if we go in this direction, will be getting support from the district on being out of compliance, because there are two options. I can either do isolation or suspension. But it was stated that if I'm doing isolation and not truly having an ISS, I'm coding it, I gotta make sure I'm coding it properly. And the only other thing I was trying to prevent is because I have a lot of staff members who have students with them as they're doing meetings and things of that nature, and that would automatically provide a opportunity for those students to have a decompression time or somewhere to go before they're acclimated back to in their normal class.
I think. So speaking as a student, as a teacher who does teacher exchange, I may grab a 3rd grade, 4th grade, or 5th grade student with that, but I feel like that's a part of our SEL. Not SEL, that's a part of PBIS model, like having teacher exchange before going to out of school suspension. And I don't complain about it. I mean, it's not a big thing to me, but have there been complaints?
There are concerns that says when we have a referral or we have someone we're doing a referral on, right? You gotta give them a consequence. I got two options. I can
Out
either
of
send you
school.
home
Okay.
or put you in isolation. So now when I go put you in isolation with another teacher, it is not viewed as it's truly a consequence. And or if that student does something in that room, then it becomes an OS, which I'm not saying I like it either way. I'm just trying to give it to you guys of like, and so teachers receive it as, oh, they just went to another classroom. But looking at the discipline side of it, there's a discipline progression that says you do this, and it's only two options: isolation, suspension, based on it, and then with the district wanting to keep suspensions down.
Okay.
But I'm just, once again, if we decide no, that is fine. As a Go team, we'll do whatever we need to do. I'm just sharing with you where the rationale came from and having an ISS model.
Yeah, I don't think we should do ISS. I feel like that's what sets Cleveland Avenue apart, especially as it pertains to the students. Like, it's a family environment. And I feel like with, ISS, no specialist to really be there and, guide their behavior and just work with them and just kind of throwing them in isolation. Like, that just, I understand we got to have some type of isolation, but what is a edifying way that can look rather than just, because that's a big like culture shock. Like,
It sets a negative tone.
absolutely.
Works for me.
So is it possible in that case, is it possible to kind of sort of, I guess, get a list of your frequent high flyers and pair those frequent high flyers with teachers that have a relationship and can support those students instead of just sending them to random? They would do check-ins with that particular teacher that is assigned to them. Is that possible?
And we do a version of that already with some check-ins, but it could be, next year could be improved, or we could make adjustments to it. And I'm not speaking specifically of those, like, it is more so a specialized incidents of like someone bringing a prohibited item to school. Okay, you bring a prohibited item. I got two options based on the progression. I can put you in isolation, or I can send you home. I have to then find a teacher that I'm going to assign you to do your isolation time for the prohibited item. No dog in the fight, just explaining to you what would have to happen, because those are the only two options that I have.
Yeah. I say go with, using your teachers that are willing to house the students, because I know last year we had a particular teacher who just knew they were the ISS room and they were completely fine with it. So
okay.
I know your hands are tied, but I don't see any need for it.
Okay.
But then I know there was another portion to it. You were saying that it's still not a trade-off in salary wise.
Still not. But
So we
then
would have
you like,
to.
I think if you go back to it, that was 55. Because if I'm understanding correctly, the team is saying for the SST.
Oh, you said
that we want to, and I don't want to speak. I just want to speak on what I'm hearing overall.
Yeah, you're summarizing. I got you.
That we're saying SST we want back. And so if you do that, I have to go back and look at
Can
exactly.
we go back to the
dollar
other one with the
dollar.
budget though, so we can see the numbers? So if we take the ISS monitor out,
Yeah, that's.
Mhm.
and we're trying to see what we lose or what we need to make up for the SST.
I mean, do we need a bookkeeper?
Okay, so you wanna take, the bookkeeper hourly would be 15,000. I'll tell you, if you feel like we don't, as a go team, that's you guys' decision.
Do we have a bookkeeper right now?
We are in to be hiring for an hourly.
So
So
from
the only
August
thing-
to now, we haven't had one though.
We struggling,
Okay,
because you have, I'm gonna tell you what we had prior, you had a secretary and a school business manager.
okay.
So now you'll have a secretary that's doing all of the requisition POs, finance, supporting you guys, supporting me, is that one person doing all,
One person doing the work of the bookkeeper
the secretary.
but we have two secretaries.
You got a clerk that
Oh,
manages,
a clerk and then we
she
have,
only manages
Oh.
attendance, enrollment, registration. I
okay.
mean, but once again, whatever you guys, we can talk through.
No, so we're asking, so can the clerk get, increased responsibilities?
Not to touch money, you don't, if you
I
did
think that'd be
anything with
positive.
money, it would have to be
Positive,
the
right?
secretary or a bookkeeper.
Mhm.
Because the money itself needs to be not in the front, needs to be counted in the back. There's a whole
Oh.
requisition, procurement process that needs to take place. But
Now,
no, if you guys feel like we don't, we can take that off, and if you take that off, I think that's 15,000.
Huh.
15 and 56, right?
I want to make sure it's realistic because our previous bookkeeper, did they? Oh, well, no, we didn't have a bookkeeper before. We had a secretary that did the work of the bookkeeper.
Then you had a school
before.
business manager, so my school
Oh.
business manager helped me with HR.
Oh, okay.
Drills, all of that, so then my secretary could focus solely on really doing the financial pieces. So you took two positions in essence, down to one.
What is so we have 56 so far from the ISS monitor.
Mm-hmm.
What is the SST?
I think it's like 140, I think, one.
I don't see it on here.
I haven't seen it yet either.
Yeah, I haven't seen it on here.
Big position, there it is, you see it? It's 147.
147, right here?
147, no, down 147,
147,
555.
559.
147, 5.
And you said, so no ISS margin, that's 55, then,
It was 56, 115 if I'm not.
yes, 56, 115.
Where is it?
One more down. Down.
Right
Yeah,
here.
keep it on there.
56,
Nine.
115.
Yes,
Yeah.
56, 115. All right, and then so we're adding the.
Do y'all just wanna go through all of the things?
We go back to it. We go
Okay.
back to it. Yeah.
That's fine with me, so, yeah.
Is it going? Okay.
And so
You
the
taking hour- Y'all
bookkeeper,
taking that 15 off? To add that to the 56, cause you gotta get the 147,
We what I'm doing right now is listing
okay?
what we have to kind
Now,
of see where we are.
those two hourly parapros, you split that in half, so 39, you could take one of those away. But you wouldn't have any paras to support throughout the building. And this hourly will give you 29 hours per para. 29 hours per person per week, so that's what I'm saying. So that, if you wanted to move that, but you just wouldn't have any paraprofessional support.
now there was a question if let me go back to it, the 147. There was a question of the accuracy of that. Is that correct?
That's, yes.
147?
That is
559.
correct, because when you look at budget allotment for the general budget, it's an average for salaries. So like even for teachers, there's an average teacher amount, so they can never get it because you got teachers you got a novice teacher and you may have one that's been teaching for 30 years. So when
Mm-hmm.
they allocate funds for positions, they give you an average amount, but that is the average amount that's given for all of those positions throughout APS.
So I guess Mr. Emmanuel's question is, how can we get a better gauge of the range or know the range?
Like, cause
So is it
Do we have to aim for 147? Because if we don't necessarily have to aim for 147, that's good. If we
how
can get
far off?
close,
That's what she's
yeah.
asking, how far
If we can
off
get
the-
close
You
to
gotta
it.
get 47 to balance, to get to zero.
Yes, I got
You see, like, the amount that's to get us to zero, that calculated, taking all of those positions.
Mhm. So where is
but to
EIP?
put
If we
147.
go down to one EIP, how
Yeah,
much
you might
money
have
is that
18,
to?
right? That was like 18.
No, EIP, so.
That's 127. No, 127 is EIP. So getting rid of
Okay.
one, that's a whole 127.
About IEP, I mean EIP, because I don't know, it's a different type of funding for that. I can ask, I'll call tomorrow to ask
Mm-hmm.
about EIP. But if it is, you guys wanna scratch an EIP teacher.
All right.
I just, you guys the go team, like, is
Go team.
that
I
what I'm
think
hearing?
so.
I can
I
see
think
light
so.
in that. I can see light in that. But I would also want for us to find out what that looks like and kind of circle back on it. Because I mean there is light in getting rid of one of the positions if we don't have that many kids that are receiving that services and that one person can, I guess, handle the two. I think I see light in that because that can also be a shared responsibility with the IST as well to pick up the slack from the EIP that one person can't handle, if that makes sense.
One quick question, Ms. Hicks, just for clarify. When you said IST, you're meaning the SST position?
Yes, sorry. Yes.
No, I just wanna make sure I'm hearing it right, because we got a lot of acronyms going on. So your thought is, looking upon that, if we did that, you feel like there may be some space with the SST position to add some segments to support for EIP to balance if we would get rid of an EIP position. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Like I said, I would have to ask and see what that looks like.
So I'm keeping a running total. And so if we were to get rid of the ISS staff member at 56, if we were to get rid of the bookkeeper at 15, and if we were to get rid of one of the EIP instructors at
You way over.
63.
You're gonna be way over, right? You got
No, we're not. We have 135, 711.
127 and 56.
But you said half of it. Oh, so
No,
that's each,
y'all
127
talking
each.
about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if EIP is
Oh, I divided by
127 each.
So I divided by 2, I thought that was only.
Oh, yeah, no.
That's for
You take
each
the
person.
127 and you add the 56,
Yeah,
you
do
way
way
over the 147.
Yeah, you can take the 127, the bookkeeper.
Yeah.
Come on.
Do the 127. I understand, we're gonna make it do what we gotta do.
I was gonna say, if we over there, how can we use that money efficiently then if it's over?
Okay, use it, and we can.
Then you reallocate it somewhere else.
Where are you reallocating? You got, what did you count with? You said 127 plus the 56, is that the only way y'all wanna do?
You wanna do that 157 and the 50, you wanna take away the ISS person or the bookkeeper?
That's up, whatever y'all was saying.
I want to get rid of both of those.
So, well, circling back to ISS, that tracks the suspension rate too, right? So.
And I guess that's why I kind of asked earlier what were the suspensions looking like, because I mean if
what's the data?
if we're trying to track the suspensions and
Mhm.
we're trying to stay away from being in the red with that, then an IST in this instance, if we reallocate the way we just did, then an IST would be necessary if that's what we're really looking at. That's why I was asking about the threshold of the suspensions.
And I think adding, well, to your point and what I was asking with that, because what data do we have for our suspension rates right now? Because I think adding an ISS monitor will negatively impact our suspension rates because that's going to count towards our suspension rates when we have because that's an in-school suspension.
It's still coded either way. We're just out of compliance because right now we're saying isolation. That's supposed to be ISS.
But
it's not.
I mean, if we
But I'm just telling you what the
Right
district
now,
person told me.
we are teacher exchanging, and then they are able to
I'm not
release
using-
back to the classroom. But if you're saying ISS, that's going to go towards our suspension rates. And now it's just like
But he's
Cleveland
saying-
Avenue
What I'm
has
asking is,
this
but I think
many
he's saying it's
students
still
in
coded the
ISS.
same
It's
way.
still coded
So whether
the
you
same
send them to
way.
ISS or to a teacher, they're still being
It's still
coded.
coded the same way.
ISS.
You're saying that there's an
So they're currently
ISS, but
coding it
technically, with having them in your class, there's not really an ISS. Because
They
it's not
coded as
proven.
ISS?
But
It has, that's what I'm saying. That's why I gotta get further guidance
Oh,
from the
okay.
discipline department. We're saying no to have an ISS monitor.
mhm.
You've shared that I'm out of compliance, so I need help for you to share with me. What do I do now? But to answer your other question, and asking about, there is no student that is close to, for the department, a student with disabilities. There is no student that's nowhere close to having 10 days.
Okay.
And I think that's the question I was answering. Ms.
Yes.
Now, have we had an uptick in suspensions? I don't give you that exact number, but this year we have had some because we've had some interactions with students and adults. So we have had somewhat of an uptick. But
Yeah.
to answer that question, no one is in jeopardy of being over the 10 days,
Okay.
but we have had a little uptick in
Okay.
suspensions. But that's
So-
all I was trying to say about.
So I
ISS.
say.
If you get rid of, so I'm just doing the math. If
Okay,
you get rid of all three positions,
and that's
the
the three
ISS
positions.
instructor, the
Uh-huh.
bookkeeper, and one EIP instructor, that gives you a total of 199, 489.
So that's way over what we need.
Yes,
So
that
if
gives you
we add,
$51,930 left over to
To spend.
now reinvest.
And your
into something else.
paraprofessional, your hourly,
Yeah, they're professional.
you want another paraprofessional?
At
or
39,
half,
so that gives you that.
But
at
no, that's
39.
that's hourly. These people don't get benefits, it's just 29 hours. A true paraprofessional, a true full-time paraprofessional is about $57,000 on my budget.
So you're better
Because-
off, it sounds like you're doing a better job with the part-time people.
But it's
mhm.
gonna be hard to staff because most people won't benefit. See what I mean? The hourly would mean you would get your pay, but it wouldn't
Mhm.
include benefits. It's 29 hours a day. I mean, I'm sorry, 29 hours a week. I'm just trying to,
Yeah, I just wish we could get more accurate numbers
So-
on how much,
on how much, which one.
on how much, like the correct salaries of like a paraprofessional,
It's on
correct
there. Go-
salary,
go to the
or,
paraprofessional.
okay.
This is the hourly part. It's on.
Oh,
there. Go
okay.
back.
It's still, but it's still.
It's
the
So-
range, it's.
No, go back.
So
Go
with
back.
that same token, in that same token, if we did ISS part-time, would it still be the 29 hours a week as well? Or would the ISS person be coming in full-time?
That is with a full-time ISS paraprofessional. So you wanna go to a part-time ISS paraprofessional, I would have to look at how many hours that is. We could,
So you have 51,000, so possibly a part-time ISS.
then we have to go in as hourly, so then.
Yeah.
Para and then an hourly, are you saying add an hourly para and an hourly?
Oh, I thought that's what you guys were
ISS?
saying.
No. What I'm saying is instead of adding another para, is it possible to add that ISS person on hourly versus
To an hourly
full-time?
position.
I mean, if we don't have the ISS teacher at all and get rid of all those positions,
Yeah,
the
Mhm.
bookkeeper, ISS, and the EIP, then we'll have extra money. So we can figure out what to do with the extra money instead of just saving a little bit of money.
and I vote just no ISS and then maybe hourly bookkeeper to kind of help with the, can we do an hourly or part-time
The
bookkeeper?
hourly, yeah, it
Oh,
was not a
part-time.
full-time bookkeeper, right? It was hourly.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I didn't do it full-time. We didn't do it full-time.
Okay, so,
It was hourly.
a part-time, can we add the bookkeeper back on? Oh, that's 82, and we had 52.
So that doesn't count because you see there's no money allotted to it. There's nothing on it. I added as.
Oh, that
hourly.
was you
So go to the
adding.
staffing tab as an hourly and I put it in. It was only 15,000. You keep going. Right there. And keep going. One more slide will show you there.
Okay, so it's only 15. So I say we add that back then. So
Okay.
no,
Mhm.
no ISS.
And no EIP.
No
one
EIP, eliminate one EIP position. And then we are adding back MTSS or SST, and we are adding bookkeeper. And those two hourly paraprofessionals.
You didn't take them out.
Oh, well, I'm just saying in general,
have
because
36.
what do we have to vote on? We have to vote on,
We're voting on the proposed budget with our suggestions. Yes, we did. I got you.
I'm just.
So our overage now is $36,111. So we're
And
only
so-
taking out, we're not putting it, we're only taking out the two positions, the ISS monitor and the one EIP.
Okay.
position. And that gives us overage of $36,112. And so what is the suggestion that we do with the $36,112?
Just keep it broke.
No, you have.
Well, you have
Oh,
to
it
put
has
it
to be
somewhere. You
used.
have to put it somewhere.
I'm sorry, I don't mean that.
I mean-
You got, I mean, maybe don't, I can just take it back to my custard soup and tell her, hey, there's some money somewhere.
So you're saying you have a deficit and then you think you have an overage? That's not what you want.
Yeah, I know.
You wanna put
Oh,
it in
yeah,
somewhere.
no overage.
Yeah, you wanna put it somewhere and say we're gonna.
Well,
Well,
okay, so
Let's
we're getting
see,
rid of
like,
an
if we-
ISS.
One on the-
Uh-oh,
one on-
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, sorry.
ahead.
You go.
Well, I was just gonna say, if we're getting rid of an ISS monitor, is there a way that we can say we're adding more professional development for the teachers for like behavior? Is there a line?
I mean, that's
there?
fine, you just added.
It
to
was the
that
training,
position.
there was a thing
Oh,
that
there
said
was the
training, there was a
training,
training
okay.
one. Not this 10,000, there was another training, is it the next line?
Yeah, we ain't got that yet.
Oh,
We have
okay.
that shit. You
Ooh.
presented it previously. It was part
Oh,
of
yeah,
the
yeah, but
presentation.
there's another slide, cause I gotta still
Yeah.
go through what's on the reserve and what's on the leveling.
No, we're done with the budget stuff, I'm saying. you-
There's two more parts.
Oh, there's this.
I promise
okay.
you, I'll put y'all up, but I'm telling you
Okay.
what's-
Okay, I have
So-
a question. If
Yes.
we decide to maybe get rid of all three, the bookkeeper, the EIP, and the ISS, can we use that money for something else? Like maybe we could use it for more books or more computers. Like,
Well,
can
that's
we use
what
it
we
for
were-
that, or does it have to be for a position?
It doesn't have to be, to be
So-
honest, I don't know you would have enough for a position unless you went hourly anyway.
Okay,
Yes,
so we could use it for something else, like
yes.
Okay. So let's just see if we maybe need it for that for now. If we don't really need a bookkeeper.
No, they said leave the bookkeeper. So the suggestion, we have two suggestions, erase all three positions. The ISS instructor, the EIP instructor, and the bookkeeper. That's one. The other one is simply erase or simply remove the ISS and IEP and EIP and keep the bookkeeper. So I think we got to a point to where we're gonna keep the bookkeeper and replace the other two with the SST instructor, which still gives us an overage of $36,112. And now what you're saying, Ms. Darden, is figure out the same thing. That's where we all are, is what do we do with the 36,000?
Okay.
And so Dr. Rose is saying that. So
And I can give suggestions, y'all want suggestions or?
we're gonna wait.
Okay,
And so what I would like to do is, for the sake of time, if everybody's in agreement, that we're gonna, and again, this is all just suggestions. But the current suggestion is to get rid of the ISS position and to get rid of the EIP position to replace it with the SST position. That leaves us with the balance of $36,112. Now he's gonna talk about the rest of the budget, and then at the end, we'll see how we feel we should allocate what suggestions we should make for the other 36,000.
Okay, that makes sense.
And I apologize, I thought we were done. There's more, he said there's more slides, so you got it. No, go
Thank
ahead.
you all for being with us.
Yes. So, speak to the
so
next.
I'm talking about the reserve and leveling, so the 65,000 is saying if we meet our mark, we'll get $65,000 to support. My recommendation would be to hire 3 hourly teacher tutors. It'd be like $21,000 each, and they will push into classes to support with small group instruction throughout the building. So my thought would be total, if you kept the 2 hourly paraprofessionals and the 3 hourly tutors, you could possibly have one person supporting per grade level with additional reading and math small group pushing. Just a thought. Leaving an additional $2,000 that will be leaving, I will put that $2,000 in instructional supplies, and that will cover the $65,000 of the reserve if we hit the 2.7.
And you're saying that's if we hit the 227 students that we are projected. Beautiful. So that's extra hands right there. 3 extra hands. Love it. And then maybe we can add that extra 30,000 that we had to your instructional supplies too, to help teachers.
All right. So Title I holdback is 15,000. I was thinking we'll use $5,000 of it to pay for teacher stipends to come in and front load strategies and skills. Pay teachers to come in and do that work. And then spend the other $10,000 for professional learning to support teachers. Next steps, the GO team needs to take action. I do think before we move forward though, we need to go ahead and allocate that 36,000 because it has to have a zero budget. So you guys
Okay.
just gotta decide where you wanna put that 36. I know that's another thing, but when I take it to my cluster.
You wanna have-
Okay, you wanna have.
Did I, and that's what I was asking, did I see?
Yeah,
Did I
you did.
see that you had instruction, you had it in there, that's what I'm saying, you had it in there.
Yeah,
Go back
so
to there.
I say give it back to
Say,
the
put
teachers,
it back
add
in
it, add that
Remember, wasn't that
$36,000.
It was $10,000 for teacher training and instruction, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
Professional
calling with
development,
you
you told
guys,
us that
I'll
professional
tell you historically here at Cleveland, I've had that type of money to spend and I've asked teachers if they want to participate in professional learning, and a lot of it's been that's my time.
Yeah.
And I haven't had a lot of buy-in with wanting to participate in
Yeah,
professional.
not professional learning. I'm saying there was a line for teacher supplies, like,
Oh, okay, I got
Yeah, it was
$29,000.
$12,000.
yeah,
Is
29,000. Is that enough for teacher
29.
supplies?
29,000.
So
Yeah,
29. If I had
29,000.
36,000,
Yeah. I just thought about, we need some money.
Y'all-
Anything extra is good to have the ability for a teacher to be able to go to a coach and say, hey, I need this, I need that, instead of saying like, we don't have money for that. I think having a surplus is good.
So let's add it. So you add the 36 to 29, that makes it what? I think it's, yeah.
You
that's-
go back up, you wanna go back up to
You
it?
go back to the, first. That is 29 plus the 36.
Is $65,112.
Okay, you gonna put that in notes so I can update it on the actual intent.
Oh, yeah. Oops.
Okay, so,
So $65,112,
$112 for teacher supplies.
yes.
Take a picture.
I have a question. After we allocate for the school supplies, is there still money left over?
that balances it out. So we had a zero.
You don't have to, I mean, I'm gonna tell you.
But I mean, you guys don't have to put it there. We could talk
We don't
about
have to
other
give all
lines.
$36,000
Yeah, you
there,
could
that's not.
find
what
other
you're
lines you want to
suggesting.
put it in. It just needs to be allocated.
Well, I guess I didn't really see anything in the slide about like increasing parent student engagement. I know that was one of our goals. Like, what is that looking like? Do we have anything in place for that? Because I know we don't have the parent liaison anymore.
You guys want to add a hourly parent liaison position?
For the money that was left over.
You could.
Or some of the money, how much would hourly,
Let's
hourly
put it in. You have to go and see.
I think I saw
hourly-
it on there.
is on there, so you just have to see what it says.
I would
And we
have to
still
put it in
give the
system to
difference,
see.
and then.
Yeah,
and then-
it ranged anywhere from 15 to 20,000. The
Mhm.
challenge is finding someone, or
Yeah.
it's
But
finding
that's-
someone to staff it,
the
because I
staff.
usually get in there and someone to start with me,
Yeah.
but they want more funding for it. But I'm not saying no, put it in. If that's what the GO team wants, we can try to staff an hourly parent liaison. That's a full-time.
I mean, maybe we don't have to have a position, but maybe it can be, I mean, like how we did like the game night for the parents to come in. Like maybe we could use some funds to kind of like do stuff or something.
Oh, yeah. So that's a good question, because where do the funds come from when like we do want to have events? Because I know you can't use certain funds for certain things. So where do we put this money to have
There's a
funds
budget-
for
Budget
events?
that you get something like $5,000 or $6,000 to do events. The rest of that has to be raised on your own. All of those
Oh.
things is for school operation instructional things.
So like we have to do more fundraising on our own to
Cause I
get
can't
money
buy
for that.
any food or anything like
Okay.
that with any of this money. Great question though,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't use any of that for that.
Okay. And it seems like we have a lot of questions, but that's at the end for public comment.
Yes.
I just want to remind everyone, we have a section for public comment at the end for questions.
What was that?
That's just you got. Don't they need to take a vote?
So now we're gonna take a vote, but I think we asked about the parent liaison piece. How much was did we look at the?
I didn't know. I mean, I heard some people say yes, some people say no, not a position. I heard the last thing comment I heard was not necessarily a position, but ways
that's
to
what I
get
heard.
funding to secure a program. That's two different,
Yes.
two different, doing a program versus position is two different
Mm-hmm.
things.
And Ms. Darden, if you have any suggestions for fundraisers, because the teachers, we would like the money to do like events like that, but like Dr. Ross said, we have to raise that money on our own, and so we have to get a little creative with fundraising. So we just need ideas for fundraising to get money to have those events, because that was fun, the game nights and things that we could put on for the parents.
I mean, I don't think we need a position because, like you said, trying to find someone to do it, like that's the thing. But I don't know. I guess because we can't use the money, we have to fundraise on our own. So, I mean, I guess just use it for the supplies because we want someone that's committed. Like, I don't want you to have to use that money to make a position and then we can't, find someone that's going to be committed to it.
Yeah, unfortunately, that has been my challenge here is you had the hourly position, but finding someone who would want to stay staffed in it with all their needs is a lot.
All right, so Dr. Ross, we thank you for sharing this information. I would now entertain a motion, to approve the budget with our suggested amendments.
Only wondering, do we have all of that written down somewhere? So when I get ready to go to my
Yes.
cluster?
I will type it up.
Okay,
Yes.
I just want to make sure I have.
I will
okay.
make sure Ms. Emmanuel gets the notes, but it was
Yes.
great.
And so wait, before we vote, this sounds like we're voting on what you just presented.
you
So
have to-
if
that's what
we
I'm saying, you
if
have
we
to-
do not agree with what you just presented, we are saying that we want to do the changes. Because we're
I
not
will be thinking you will be voting on the
changes.
Which
I feel like this is saying we're voting on what you presented as your draft budget.
No, that's why I made
Versus-
sure what I presented was we're gonna now take a motion to vote on the draft budget with the amended changes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So that's
I don't know. But that's-
Well, yeah, you're changing the wording. You're saying with the amended changing,
Yes,
but the
it's not
goal
in there. Yeah,
team,
that's
yeah,
not
the
in this.
goal team wording is the approval of the draft budget. I just wanted to make sure I was clear with that.
And is anyone on the GO team on the call?
Miss Jenkins is here.
No, I'm sorry, from the district GO team. Sorry, Ms. Jenkins. Anyone from the district GO team on the call? Because I want to get that right. I don't want to be out
But
of.
there's no,
Because I see what Emmanuel's saying. It can't read, but I
but
was
there isn't any script that says if you don't agree, then what are the steps? You see what I'm saying? So if we don't agree with this budget, we vote no, then what? There's no script for that.
Well,
I thought that's what the
And the other
discussion.
thing I do want to say,
Well,
even with what you guys are sharing, there's still no final budget yet. It's just what we're talking about and changes you
It's
guys
still
amended. Then I meet with my cluster
It's
soup,
crazy.
then
It
I
says
come back.
vote. It says take action or make a motion and
I could be reading.
have more discussion.
I could be reading into
Oh, that
it.
does
Y'all
say
don't-
have more discussion.
And then once the discussion is concluded, then you vote again.
That is exactly what it said. So you start and vote on the original, then you have more from what it reads up there.
Oh, okay, so we
So I think
didn't,
we
we
didn't
didn't
do this
agree.
originally.
Yeah, we didn't do this originally,
We
because
just
we
had
didn't agree
discussion,
with
now we're
the.
doing the vote.
Okay, so we didn't agree with the original, but we had a discussion.
And now
And
we're
then
voting
now,
on the
yeah,
amendment.
I'm not putting anybody's votes out there. I'm just saying.
Yes,
That's what
no,
happened. Okay,
I got you.
sorry, I could be reading into it.
No,
but
you're
I-
reading
I
it
saw.
correctly. We had the discussion before the motion to approve the budget.
Mhm.
So for the sake of continuity and doing things the right way, and I want to make sure everything is right and in order. So what we would do now is take a vote on the draft budget. So just kind of prepping everybody, we're gonna not approve it. We're gonna go back to, we're gonna read what our suggestions were, and then we're gonna vote on the suggestions,
Mhm.
okay? So do we have a motion to approve the draft budget?
I motion to approve the draft budget.
Are you supposed to say no? I don't, yes, okay, we have a motion to approve the draft, but I don't know. I'm so confused. I'm confused.
No, you're right. I think you do the
I think we're
motion,
supposed to agree to it, motion, and then we take the
then you
vote.
vote.
We should all
Yeah, you gotta agree to the
vote
motion,
no.
which is saying you're gonna put the motion and plan to vote. Now, when you vote however you want, but you gotta agree to have the motion to vote on.
Okay.
And then when you vote, you make your decision.
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to.
Right.
I appreciate the Robert's Rules of Order. So we have a motion from Ms. Emanuel, I believe, to accept the draft budget. Do we have a second on that motion?
No,
I
not-
say,
oh,
No,
sorry.
Yes, after the motion and second, the Go team may have additional discussion.
Yes,
Take a vote.
yeah,
Yes.
you
Then
said,
you said you approved to take a vote, then y'all,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The first you taking a motion to take a vote on the.
Okay, so do we have a motion to take a vote on the draft budget?
I motion to take a vote on the draft budget.
Do we have a second to take a vote on the draft budget?
second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we actually vote on the draft budget. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
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 Okay. Anyone in opposition, please signal by saying nay. Is there anyone who wishes to abstain from voting on this matter? Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and it's been approved that we vote on the draft budget. Now we'll have discussion on the budget. I'm gonna summarize the discussion so we can vote on what we have. So the summary was that we accept the budget as proposed because we're in a 276,000, with 700,000
$720,000.
deficit. So we understand the need for cutting positions and trimming the fat. It has been suggested that we remove the ISS instructor for $56,115,000, as well as one of the EIP instructors for $127,556. Together, that will total, I think that was the 191. I don't know. But long story short, we're gonna use those two positions to fund the SST position for $147,559. That leaves us with a balance of $36,000, $112 that is currently being earmarked for professional development for the teachers.
Can I ask to see one other part? To put in there for the EIP teacher for clarification first to even see, I wanna put that in there.
Yes,
because
to
we-
see what our numbers are and how that would
I just
affect.
wanna put it in there, so if you're voting on it, it's not I need to find out if that's truly based
Yeah,
on
like,
student, if you could.
Aren't they funded the same, like
Yes.
if they're funded the same
Yes.
way?
I got you.
I just wanna make sure
I
that's
think-
that.
Yes. So then, I don't want to open up another can of worms, but while we're having this, no.
Huh? No, I was
While
agreeing
we're
with
having
you.
discussion, if you're saying we can't move the position, then what?
I think you
Yeah.
come back to the next meeting.
And
with
then y'all
it.
Okay,
have
and then
to
we'll
look
have
at
to
it
discuss,
again.
Yeah.
we have an idea
Mhm.
now, and then we'll have to. figure
Yeah,
out,
we'll
okay.
have an idea
I just
later.
want to make sure we're all on the same page on what this process looks like. So all in favor, do we have a motion to accept the proposed plan for the draft budget that I just outlined?
A motion to accept the new proposed plan
For the draft budget,
for the draft budget.
okay? Do you have a second?
I second the motion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we accept the improved plan for the draft budget for Dr. Ross to take back. Now we'll vote all in favor of this new improved plan. Please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. If there's anyone in opposition, please signify by saying nay. And would anyone like to abstain for the record from voting on this matter? Okay. So it has been, so the budget has been approved. We will now move on to information items. First, the principal's report.
Nothing much to share. We still have the Cleveland Avenue basketball team. They have a game on Thursday at Finch. I don't know exactly what we're playing, and then tournament starts in March. So we have that going on. We have our Candy Grams program fundraiser that we've been doing, and those will be delivered as a Valentine's Day gift on Friday. And we're gonna have a Black History Spirit Week the last week in February. And we're also working on creating a calendar of events. So we'll be able to share with parents and staff knows events that are taking place. That's about it.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ross. We will now hear about any additional items. We do have one announcement for the Go Team from the Go Team office. Declarations for Go Team elections are open up until February 28th. We would need both parent/guardian and non-supervisory instructional staff candidates. If you are interested or know of anyone else who would be a good fit for our team, please direct them to apssstrongschools.com to declare their candidates. And then it says, if
Can you go back to the one slide? I do want to share that part of the process.
you have questions, contact the Go Team office.
What's
This or
next?
this one.
What's next? So we'll go back one more slide. Let me see if we already did those things. Oh, we already voted on it. Okay, next slide. I will meet with my cluster superintendent between the 17th and 21st. We'll have HR staffing conferences the 24th through the 27th. And you guys will come back and vote on the final budget before the 14th. So those are the next steps in the process.
And so now we will open the floor for public comment. During this time, if any members of the community wish to make a public comment, you have 2 minutes. This is not a call and response. It is an opportunity for you to stress or for you to express your opinion on the information that was discussed today, for us as a team to take it back into review. And so I would now like to open the floor for public comment. Ms. Emmanuel will recognize individuals and then also check you off the list because everyone is also, please raise your hand and Ms. Emmanuel will recognize you. And please remember that you only have 2 minutes and everyone is allowed to make one comment. So you're not commenting on someone else's comment, you're commenting on the proceedings from the meeting so that we're aware of your opinion and where you stand. We also want to thank you for joining us today. So again, at this time, if anyone has would like to make a public comment, Ms. Emmanuel will recognize you.
Okay, Miss Dana Price, I see your message.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, this is Dana Price. And I first like to start off that I think it's rather insensitive to have a public discussion about abolishing a specific position without having first spoken to that person who holds that position. However, I am not surprised. One of my comments is, or question, or just want to pose, if the MTSS position in fact makes 10 to 20 or almost 30K less than what that line item is, does that money go back into the budget if that was an inflated number? And then the suggestion is to change the schedule from these students being self-contained so that they will have movement and some flexibility, which would give the students an outlet to move around and not be in a space in which they can't move around. And I think that would address some of your behavior problems, because before this year, we did not have the kind of behavior problems that we have. And in fact, they are nothing they are not nearly extreme enough to have an ISS person.
All right, thank you, Ms. Price.
You're very welcome.
Would anyone else like to make a public comment? Okay. Well, again, we thank you all for joining us today or this evening. We have reached the end of our agenda. Is there any additional business at this time?
Can I speak? I'm sorry, I wasn't able to raise my hand.
No problem, no problem. Please go ahead.
Hey, I just wanted to, I know as of right now, the drafted budget approved, well, has the MTSS position back on, but I did just want to speak to the importance of it just in case the question comes back up. And I know we've spoken about the academic portion of the importance of the MTSS, and I know it's not necessarily about the person, but more so about the position. But in reality, this is a person in this position. And if we really think about the impact of removing this person from our school, we currently have a great MTSS who not only does the job of the MTSS, but she goes above and beyond. And she has amazing relationships with students and teachers and parents. And so just realizing the weight of the impact of removing that position, there are going to be so many more behavior issues without it, as well as some of the issues that have been deflected with parents and different things. All of those are going to start raising if we do remove that position. So just in case it comes up again on the chopping block, I just do want us to remember that the person that is in this position has been doing an amazing job of keeping up with the tasks that she has, as well as going above and beyond of her caseload. So just keep that in mind when we consider removing that position.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to make a public comment? We want to definitely give everyone an opportunity.
Yes, I have a comment to make. I know that we talked about possibly removing an EIP position, but I also want us to focus on the fact that looking at those positions that have been proposed to be removed and who directly impacts instruction, because with 2 current EIP teachers, are they servicing students the majority of the day? Are they pulling those EIP students multiple times throughout a week? Because I've heard the buzzwords, small group reading, small group math, but are we utilizing the staff members that are currently on the roster for the reasons that they were designed to work? So let's just keep that at the forefront of our mind as well.
Thank you for that. We'll open up the floor one more time. Is there anyone else who would like to make a public comment before we adjourn? Well, if there is nothing else, do we have a motion to adjourn today's Go Team meeting?
There was one more.
There's one more. Okay, no, we definitely want to give anyone who's on a chance to make a comment if they desire.
I thought Ms. Bolden, I thought you signed up, or maybe she logged off. Ms. Bolden?
Okay. All right. Well, again, I thank you all for joining us. Do we have a motion to adjourn today's Go Team meeting?
A motion to adjourn the Go Team meeting today.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn.
Miss White, is that Miss White? Oh,
Yes, that's me.
okay. Hi, I'm sorry.
All
Hey,
right, so we have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
I second that motion. That's Ms. Jenkins.
Okay, so it's been moved in second that we adjourn today's Go Team meeting. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
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 Aye. And is there any opposition? Please signal by saying nay. Okay, and would anyone like to abstain from voting on the matter? All right, so it's 6:07 and our meeting is officially adjourned. All right, thank you all for your time, attention, and concern and willingness to participate in today's discussion. We appreciate you all. I look forward to seeing you at the next meeting.